Welcome to the November 22nd Council Work Session. Thank you all for joining us the day before Thanksgiving. And we do have at the top of the agenda our committee reports and items of interest. I have two. I know the manager has a couple. Anybody else have anything?
Oh, yeah.
Emily, why don't you go for it? And Betty and Claire. Okay, we got a lot. All right, go for it.
I'll come up with something.
Okay.
Last week, Betty, Greg, and I went to the National League of Cities conference in Charlotte. It was pretty intense, nonstop. Learned a lot of stuff that will be more clear after I calm down from being back. One takeaway, though, is that all across the country we're looking at the same problems and the solutions are hard to find. But many of the solutions that we are working on we're at the front of the curve, so we should be happy about that, but we should also use it to encourage ourselves to get on with it even more. Those sidewalks, I really think they're becoming a bigger and bigger problem. They're more eroded and cracked, and there's holes. It's just a huge ADA problem. And 2 days ago, I was walking across the park block, got tripped up and went flat down on my side, cut my knee, got all bruised. So now it's a personal issue. And I've been on about sidewalks for a while. I know they're put on the property owners, but I don't think that's working fast enough, and we need to bring it up farther on our list of concerns. That's it.
Right. Betty?
Oh, thank you. Everybody knows we already have rats on a future agenda, but rats are becoming a huge problem in South Eugene. I don't know about other places. And some people think it's connected to the presence of chickens, which sounds reasonable, but people are just being overrun with rats. And turkeys. I keep getting more and more complaints about turkeys, about how people can't walk out because of the turkey feces, and they're destroying gardens and destroying plants. And people said they won't move out of the way. Well, I know that. I've stopped my car for them before, but they are all over the place, and I've suggested this a few years ago, and people didn't seem to like it. But the suggestion of some people is make a law against feeding them. Some cities have done that, and
Feeding on them.
Mike says no, so we can't do it. But but it encourages them when people are throwing out food. They used to be out at Mount Pisgah. I never see them out there anymore. I see them in my neighborhood. But other people besides me have a much bigger problem than I do, according to what they're telling me. And one of the latest things I heard was someone wondered if we could do something about scented laundry products that come out of the people who are sensitive are bothered by other people's clothes dryers. Anyway, I said I didn't think we probably could do anything about that. And I had something else, but I forgot it. What was it? That's all.
Okay, thank you. Claire?
Thanks. Well, I wanted to actually ask the city manager about the report that was published in the paper that he has chosen an interim police chief for us. And I just wanted to ask you, John, to just share a little bit about your thinking of making this appointment of someone who's not been part of the agency or part of Eugene. And then I had a follow-up question as well.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts why I chose not to pick somebody as an internal candidate. One is the senior command staff at the department is already pretty lean when it comes to capacity. There's several AICs are acting in capacity, and so one of my concerns is if one of them would have just appointed up into the chief's position, then we're just creating more stability and more AICs at the senior command level, and I think there's a need to kind of help stabilize as we go through this transition. So that was one piece to that. Another was I wanted somebody that has experience as a police chief already, and not for the permanent position necessarily, but for the interim position, because it's a pretty steep learning curve to move into a police chief's position. And so, again, from a stability perspective, I just thought that it would be important to have somebody that's had that kind of experience in some jurisdiction so they understand the lay of the land of just being a police chief. And so there wasn't a steep learning curve for that. So that was a second piece with that. Also, anybody that would want to be the permanent chief, I've said that I won't hire the temporary or interim chief as the permanent chief. And so there could be people inside the department that may choose to apply for the full-time chief's position, and therefore they, this would preclude them from doing that if they were one of those folks. And then, and one reason for not wanting or to set an expectation or to set the expectation that the interim would not be appointed as a permanent chief is we are undergoing a very extensive process, community process, internal process to find the absolute best person to come and work for us as the next police chief. And I didn't want any misunderstanding that somehow I appoint an interim chief, and in that appointment, they then turn around and apply for the full-time chief's position, and there's a perception that they've had an advantage in doing that. And so I wanted to make sure the process stayed the way it's going, and I think will produce a really nice outcome, I'm hoping, as we move into the spring.
Great. Thank you for providing that additional background. And then, you know, I haven't served as a city councilor when we've had an interim chief situation, so I just wanted to ask, and this might be a silly question, but in terms of the authority of this interim chief, will he have all the same authorities as a permanent chief would have while he's in that role?
Catherine, you might, if there's any nuances to it, you might want to, we can talk about that, but the person will have the same authorities as any other executive director has, which is similar to what a police chief would be. The one difference is, and it doesn't have to do with authority, but the interim chief, while he's been in law enforcement for 44 years, he currently is not certified as a police, and so that. So he's not technically the chief, because the chief generally implies certification as a sworn certified officer, and so he will actually be the executive of the police department. So the roles, responsibilities, authorities are the same. It will just be a little nuance on that title.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Manager, while you have the floor, I think, did you have one other or two other items that you wanted to share?
Just real quickly, I know with reference to rats, we'll do a couple of things. One, we will provide a written update here in the next week or so, and then we will also come to one of the meetings in the next week or two and just provide a general update, and then we will also have a much longer work session for the council after the first of the year. So we want to make sure people get a good sense of what's currently going on in that. We've heard that as well, not only at this table, but from others. And so we have a very much a concern to want to be proactive about that. And so we'll come and talk about that. And then similar with winter strategies, we'll provide some updates to the council to include coming and to one of the council meetings in the next week or two and give a sense of what is going on with winter strategies, not with us, not just with us, but the county is also involved in this conversation, and to give a fuller picture of that as we move into that season.
Thank you. Alan?
Yeah, there's a lot of turkeys in the Fairmont neighbors and the Laurel Hill Valley neighbors. In fact, one time at Laurel Hill Valley neighbors meeting, we had ODF&W come talk to us about turkeys because they were becoming quite a nuisance to some people. And the biggest thing they said was, do not feed the turkeys. That just encourages them. So other than that, wasn't a whole lot we could do. We talked to them about capture and relocation, but that didn't seem to be a very good strategy, nor does it work very well. So don't feed the turkeys. I noticed that at the Trump administration cut the budget on advertising for open enrollment on Obamacare. So I wanted to make sure everybody knew that open enrollment was active right now and that you can still apply for Obamacare until I think the middle of December sometime. So if that's of interest to you, that the deadline's approaching in a couple of weeks. The other thing that we've been talking about is the university area, special area zone study that's going to be occurring pretty soon. It's going to be starting up next year. Special area zone has a really cool acronym called SPAS, but I'm told not to use that for some reason. So that one's going to be starting up sometime in the spring probably, and getting going a little bit. On the Sustainability Commission meeting that I attended on November 15th, we did talk about a proposal for home scoring, which is a proposal that several cities have done, which is kind of an, that sticker you get on an appliance that says if you buy this appliance, it's rated kind of this level, and this is what you should expect in terms of energy bills. That kind of thing would be applied to purchases of homes when you do that, so you'd understand what your energy score was for a home. So that's a proposal will be coming from the Sustainability Commission, just kind of a heads up. And MPC, not too many new items. We did talk about no cell phones during council meeting. During driving, and I think I mentioned before that maybe we were talking about a challenge with the Springfield City Council and who has the best percentage of or lowest percentage of violations of that policy. So maybe that will be coming to us soon. But that law is in effect, and it's actually they did a news report on it the other day. And we've seen a reduction in the number of accidents attributed to texting and distracted driving already, and it's only been in effect for a couple of months. Wow. So that's it.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to say that for quite a long time, I thought it was only the South Hills that was full of turkeys. But as it turns out, they're quite a bit of them in North Eugene, too. On the other day on Cal Young, there were about a dozen of them stopping traffic in both directions, and nobody was going anywhere because the turkeys weren't interested in moving, really. I'm not sure I know what the challenge is there, but what the answer is there, but
better powers of persuasion.
I was thinking, hunting, something of that nature, but that's probably not a good option either. I will again mention something I haven't mentioned in a very long time. I used to mention almost as much as how City Hall should be at eWeb, but we have a fairly large, as long as we're solving the rat problem in South Eugene, we have for years had an unaddressed problem in North Eugene that I've complained about quite a bit, in that, especially this time of year, we are inundated with nutria, very large rats of unusual size, almost, really. And if we're going to work on rats, I hope we'll spend an equal amount of time around the Delta Ponds area, specifically in the river, on nutria that overrun neighborhoods as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Well, the historic solution is a Pied Piper. So anyone who wants to.
In Louisiana, they do $5 a tail on nutria, but anyway.
All right. I just have two quick things. One is councilors all received a poll about an additional executive session that we're aiming to do on December 6th, which would be a lunchtime meeting. So that normally we wouldn't have a council meeting that week, but we want to do an executive session to follow up on the discussion about the city-county land swap.
Is that a Wednesday?
That's Wednesday. So just check for that poll. And
next, did you say?
It would be the 6th, so 2 weeks from today.
What time, 11?
I think we're aiming for like 11:30. Yeah, or 11. I can't remember. She's got it. The other piece, just a little heads up that Kitty Piercy and I have co-authored a guest viewpoint to go in the Register Guard in support of the Clean Energy Jobs Bill. So hopefully that will, they'll run that next week, hopefully. So that's, just look for that. And we both supported it and want the state to pass that legislation. So there we go. I think that now is the segue to climate. Oh, you had one more. I'm sorry, Betty. Go for it.
Sorry. Yes, I found the thing that I didn't think of before. A person said, why don't we do something about the theft of shopping carts?
Oh.
It's a big problem, and people do steal them, and is there any law against it? I don't know, but he said it costs us all money because the grocery stores have to pay for a lot of money for each shopping cart, and this man said they're all over the place. That's all. Thank you.
Okay.
bag money.
Chris?
I'll just mention that to this point, one solution that our Fred Meyer has put in place is you replace one of the wheels with an electronically controlled wheel, and when you leave a certain perimeter of the store, the wheel locks up.
Right.
And the shopping cart's no longer usable. So that, I think, is probably a quick solution to taking shopping carts off-site and using them.
Well, okay. Thank you. And I think we're ready to go on to the update on the climate recovery ordinance. Manager?
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll invite Ethan and his team up to walk us through this.
Good afternoon, Mayor Vinnis and councilors. I'm Ethan Nelson, currently serving as the city's intergovernmental relations manager, and the duties include managing our sustainability programs within the city manager's office. Before I turn the presentation over to our sustainability analyst, Chelsea Clinton, who will be walking you through the great amount of work that has been accomplished since your last climate recovery ordinance update, which was in June 2016. I would like to both set the frame for this discussion and also provide acknowledgement of the many individuals, groups, and organizations that have been involved in the work. First and foremost, it is important to understand that the city organization and community have been working on implementing sustainable development policies and triple bottom line practices for well over 20 years. From the environmental management system certifications of our wastewater treatment operations to the work of our Parks and Open Space Division in reducing pesticides in our parks, our organization has been working on advancing environmental goals of our community, and through the CRO, we continue to do so. As we dig deeper into what a livable future means in a carbon-constrained world, I also encourage you to recognize the equity impact that services provided by our Library, Recreation, Cultural Services Department has on creating opportunities for education, physical activity, and enrichment of our community soul. These activities have tremendous positive impact on our ability to grow our city, create community vibrancy, reduce our carbon emissions, but more importantly, build our resilience and connectivity to thrive into an unknown future. The updates to our internal efforts and community-wide projects will showcase the involvement of a broad set of organizational and community partners. We will hear from our facility and fleet services respectively, as well as our fire department. I want to pause and highlight that Eugene is unique in the U.S. in having a fire department and chief that is on the forefront of understanding how to provide the critical services our community requires while addressing our climate goals as well. We had a deep involvement in developing our Climate and Energy Action Plan update approach from the Mayor's Ad Hoc Climate CRO Committee with wide community representation, many of which who have made the today and are in the audience today. And a team consisting of sustainability commissioners, staff from human rights and neighborhood involvement, and professional sustainability consultants. So I want to thank you all for your involvement, for folks that have been able to make that. I want to apologize in advance for the length of the staff presentation because it's a little bit longer than the typical 10-minute one. We have a large amount of material to present and want to ensure that you have a full picture and clear understanding of where we are now and where we propose to go. Lastly, I want to recognize the exceptional efforts of Chelsea, who many of you know through her work on the Budget Committee. Her work and insight has been fundamental to our current position. So with that, I'll turn it on over to Chelsea.
Thanks, Ethan. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here today, having our team here today. I'm the sustainability analyst for this city, as Ethan mentioned, and I think without further ado, I'll just jump right into our presentation and I'll jump into our agenda. So today we'll start with an overview of the CRO and continue with a presentation on our internal climate action plan. Then we'll present on the work of the mayor's CRO ad hoc work group and the Community Climate and Energy Action Plan project proposal, and then we'll end with the council discussion. So to start, I'll give a quick overview of the Climate Recovery Ordinance. City Council passed the Climate Recovery Ordinance, as many of you know, or the CRO in 2014, and then it was updated in 2016. The ordinance includes 4 climate action goals, which we will now review. Of the 4 goals, 2 are directed towards the city as an organization and 2 are for the community. The first goal calls for all city-owned facilities and city operations to be carbon neutral by 2020. The second goal calls for the city organization to reduce fossil fuel use by 50% by 2030 compared to 2010 usage. Similar to the second goal, the third goal calls for the community to reduce fossil fuel use by 50% by 2030 compared to 2010 usage. And the fourth goal calls for the community to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions to an amount that is no more than the city of Eugene's average share of a global atmospheric greenhouse gas level of 350 parts per million by 2100. This was estimated in 2016 to require an annual average emission reduction level of 7.6%. Next, we'll take a look at how the organization is doing in terms of meeting these goals. The city has been completing greenhouse gas inventories periodically since the year 2000. We released the 2016 inventory today on our CRO web pages, which can be accessed via the climate recovery link on the City of Eugene's homepage or through the sustainability web pages. We will continue to complete inventories as a means of reporting on the first of the CRO climate action goals. The graph presented here is from the city's 2016 internal or operational inventory. Based on the target set by City Council in 2016, the city is aiming for a 60% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 2020 compared to 2010. The graph shows that emissions have been reduced by 19.5% since 2010. Reductions between 2010 and 2016 are from electricity, shown in green, which are down about 56%, and natural gas and district steam, shown in the light and the dark blue colors, which is down about 30%. Emissions from fleet, shown in red, have increased by about 3%. The city will need to reduce its emissions by an additional 40.5% to meet this target set by City Council. The full inventory provides more detailed information, including an overview of usage by department. CRO Communications Plan. So this graphic is a snapshot from our website. It illustrates one of the CRO communications tools that the city has recently developed. The city has developed different avenues to communicate about the CRO. While inventories are of interest to some, others need more basic information about actions that they can take to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions and fossil fuel use. To that end, the city revamped the CRO web pages in 2016. The website includes information on actions individuals and businesses can take to reduce their carbon footprint, as well as vignettes of efforts from around the city that demonstrate sustainability efforts in connection to topics like healthy families and sustainable communities. In addition, staff sought feedback from the mayor's CRO ad hoc work group, which I'll talk about in more detail later in the presentation, on what should be included in a CRO communications plan. Based on feedback from that group, staff developed a high-level scope of work for professional support in developing a comprehensive CRO communication strategy within the next several months. In the next 2 parts of this presentation, you will learn about plans to update the city's internal climate action plan, also known as the ICAP, and the Community Climate and Energy Action Plan, also known as the CEAP. These 2 plans are the city's roadmap to how we will accomplish the climate action goals in the CRO. So next we'll go into detail on the internal climate action plan, or the ICAP. The City of Eugene's energy management work has been going on for decades. Formal work on an internal climate action plan dates back to at least 2009. The city decided to update its ICAP this year in an effort to identify a path, the total economic cost, co-benefits, and challenges to achieving the internal CRO goals. Nearly all of the city's fossil fuel use and greenhouse gas emissions can be traced to fuel for vehicle and equipment, and heating and cooling for buildings. Therefore, it made most sense to start internal plan updates with our fleet and facility service areas. And in addition, the fire department volunteered to be the first department to participate, and it focused on actions it could take within its fleet. You will hear from representatives from Fleet Fire and Facility Service Areas shortly. In addition to presenting on the updated ICAP, they will briefly describe the efforts that each of their service areas have taken that demonstrate Eugene's long-term commitment to environmental stewardship. Reports for each service area are expected to be finalized and released by the end of the calendar year. So I'll now introduce my colleagues up at the table. So directly to my left is Richard Perry. He's the Fleet and Radio Communications Manager. Next to him is Joe Zaludik, the Fire Chief. And then at the end of the table is Jeff Perry, our Facilities Manager. So at this time, I'm going to hand the presentation over to them, and I think Richard's going to kick us off.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Councilors. Thank you for your service and taking time to listen to our presentation today. As mentioned, I'm Richard Perry. I'm the Fleet and Radio Communications Manager. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about our internal climate action plan. As mentioned, Fleet has worked Fleet is a central service that provides vehicle management asset support to all the departments within the city. So we maintain about 800 vehicles and approximately 400 to 600 off-road pieces of equipment. So collaboratively with all the departments within the city, we've had a pretty good history of working toward environmental stewardship. This is a bulleted list of some of the accomplishments that we've made to date. We're an EcoBiz certified shop. We implemented hybrid vehicles early on in the early 2000s. Those vehicles are now coming to end of life, and we're starting to replace them with electric vehicles where that opportunity is present. We've installed idle right devices on our police patrol vehicles to reduce idling. We have a no idle, no top off policy, and we were one of the early adopters of alternative fuels and continue to be a leader in that area. So with that, we'll roll into some of the things that we're focused on the current ICAP applications. The first one we'd like to talk about are telematics. And telematics is a nice word that describes remote collection of data on variable pieces of equipment that are out and about. Those systems put onboard monitoring devices in place so we can measure and monitor what's happening with those pieces of equipment, and then analyze that to use it to make decisions on how we operate, what equipment we use, and where to focus our time and energy. This graph is an example of a telematics report. It shows a 7-day period of time where data was collected and graphically illustrates idle time. So from that, we can quickly see that we would want to put energy into the top few vehicles to determine how can we reduce that idling rather than spending time in the vehicles that are at the bottom half of the graph. The next area that we've focused on are electric vehicles. As we've transitioned, we've started installing charging infrastructure at strategic locations. The top left picture is at Broadway South, which is our parking garage downtown for our pool vehicles. And the lower right picture is at the Roosevelt Yard, also pool vehicles. We started in 2013 with the first electric vehicle, and this last year we purchased 6 more. So we're implementing electric vehicles wherever that opportunity presents itself. Another area that we're looking at are our alternative fuels. As you can see from this picture, we show biodiesel, a mixture of B50, B20, and then renewable diesel, which is affectionately termed R99. In the right-hand picture, you can see the clarity of those fuels. And just by visual inspection, the R99 on the right-hand side is a much cleaner burning fuel and can result, depending on the feedstock, in up to a 68% reduction in carbon. It uses the same feedstock as biodiesel, but it's processed in a different manner. So, in summary, we've been an advocate for environmental stewardship and carbon reduction, and we will continue to be in the future. It's a continuous improvement process that we'll never really stop in engaging in. We're currently looking at telematics, electric vehicles, alternative fuels, and then always on the lookout for new technology and what might be on the forefront. And so that picture is of a manned aerial drone that might fly me to work and back one day, who knows. So with that, I'd like to pass it off to Joe.
Thank you, Richard. Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity to touch base on this issue. We were given the opportunity to get in on this early. I think from the fire services experience with the hazmat team over the last 3 decades, and we also have the Toxics Right to Know office in our fire prevention office, it has positioned us well to kind of understand the elements and the measurements that go into this. And being a relatively large user of fuel for the service that we provide, we thought that we could offer maybe some early opportunities to find some of the savings. I'll admit that initially some of the challenges looked a little unattainable just looking at the numbers, but I want to thank the sustainability team that helped us walk through each element of those, that then let us see not only is it a possibility, is it's going to be a reality in the relative near future. So again, we appreciate the opportunity. We'll go through our pieces of this, and we'll try to if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them towards the end. This shows our ambulance units. We put 6 on the street. We put 4 more this year. They're much more fuel efficient. You see the duty that we do on the right-hand side, which is, all those engines have to respond for an emergency, but we're finding strategies so they're not burning fuel while they're not actually pumping or working at an emergency, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Our low acuity calls for dispatch, by design, we are going to reduce the calls for service that our large apparatus go to by using a triage system that includes having patient information that allows the patient to move on to a cot or not, and whether or not there's stairs, and whether or not it's at a facility that is okayed for handicap use, which allows us to send 1 unit rather than 2 in some situations. We've been working with the insurance companies. We were encouraged by the mayors of both Eugene and Springfield in the past to try to reduce unneeded trips to the hospital for patients that are low acuity, and some of those patients that we talked about during our budget committee sessions on the basic life support system. But the Trillium program with Ride Source and even approved medical taxi is coming to fruition in early next year, and those situations we'll be able to talk to the navigator and find the appropriate transportation to low acuity transports that do not require even a basic life support ambulance to get to the hospital in a manner, or to their doctor's office, or to urgent care, or to the appropriate facility. And those are just on the very near horizon, and we'll be rolling those out in early 2018. Looking at our calls for service, 36,000 calls total in the metro area. We think between 5 and up to as many as 7,000 calls, we might reduce the footprint of the apparatus that go on those calls, because we always assume that it's a worst case scenario, and we're able to collect data now that confirms for certain code determinants, which tells us what's going on in a patient's life at that time. There's very low likelihood of needing all the resources that we send. We've been trying to do things responsibly so we don't triage and send a too low amount of crew members to a scene, but we think we can balance it now very safely, and we'll roll it out as early 2018 as well, and we'll do it in a manner that we can walk it back if we get to an area that is not working as designed. But our number 1 priority is safety for the community, but we know that we can do that and meet these goals. The renewable diesel, Richard talked about that. It is really a step in the right direction. We have been using biodiesel. The apparatus on top is when I got here, what we were operating in, and you could kind of see the cloud of diesel smoke that went behind them. Good for getting rid of mosquitoes, but not so good for taking care of our environment. So thankfully, we have transitioned to a much more efficient apparatus, and the crews do a really good job at Fleet of maintaining those. We're using a measure of biodiesel, but the best path to compliance for us for the amount of fuel that we use is working with our regional partners to get a good source of R99, and allowing us to have access to that fuel that we think, once we reduce the time that we're idling and the times that we're operating the equipment, we believe it's we're going to be able to reach those goals. Our apparatus specifications have been changing consistently. Again, this is one of our smaller ambulances that also has the ability to have a clean idle technology. We are reducing weight and size of every apparatus in our inventory. We just ordered a truck company that's on the neighborhood of 2,000 to 4,000 pounds lighter. It's 2 feet smaller. We're going to do the same with our engine specifications, and we're going to continue to look and try to align our apparatus with some of the street specifications that are coming out, and to make sure that we're using every bit of technology, including the type of lighting we use, and reducing and eliminating idling with battery packs whenever possible. The newest technology will allow us to put an apparatus that is not actively pumping at a fire to turn itself off when it with just the lights on, and if the battery gets too low after an hour or two, it'll turn itself back on for a few minutes to recharge the batteries. And that's a huge advantage over just having a vehicle idle at a high idle for up to 2 or 3 hours at an incident. Some of the things that we're going to do out in our drill field right now, we do use our diesel apparatus to pump on the drill field. There's technology available that we can switch some of those the pumping to electric pumps that are portable, like on a pallet. It is just allowing new recruits and trained individuals to feel the pressure of the hose line without having to use the engine with diesel all the time. It does not replace all of our training. It cannot replace training an engineer how to operate the piece of equipment, but for hundreds of hours annually, it will allow us not to burn diesel when we have an electric source available to operate out in the drill field. Our driving simulator has been a remarkable addition. We received it through a federal grant a few years ago. We have been using it and expanding that use. This academy, we had 18 individuals in the Recruit Academy. To have 18 people get the basic training in a simulator and then put them out in the street to touch them up to make sure they received all those skills is much more efficient than putting somebody in a large vehicle and driving them around town for an hour each or up to a couple hours each for 18 people. And this is going to be compounded over the years as we do recertification training, we do emergency drivers training. We can also use this simulator to do slick and ice and snow surface training, and we really feel like we're going to start to capitalize on this as one of the better things that is going to reduce some of our fuel use. With that being said, not everybody is conducive to using this training. Some people are very sensitive to motion sickness. For some older people that aren't really gamers, they don't respond to this as well, but we have a process to get them oriented to it so it's not, doesn't get them seasick or whatever while they're in the training. Our next steps. This is actually Eugene. Looks like the Rose Parade down there in the picture, and I'm not sure what kind of vehicle it is, but I thought that was, as about as green as we could get it. Kind of the Eugene version of the Rose Parade. We need to find a fuel source that's consistent on the West Coast, and I think elected officials on the West Coast, once we start sticking together and figuring out if we can convert a couple more of our West Coast refineries to R99. Right now, we either have Singapore, we have Louisiana, and also all the stuff on the West Coast. All the fuel has been kind of driven to the armed forces for use, and so we know it's a really good product, but I think that's something that we can do in the relative near future. I think we saw Tesla had their new truck come out that's an all-electric vehicle. We've had conversations about how we might use that technology in the future. We're very interested in that, and the fire dispatching procedures are in process. And maybe the one more thing that I thought about as we were talking this through is sticking together with the elected officials to talk to manufacturers to be early adopters of the hybrid fire engines or some kind of battery assist. Even if we had to pump it on diesel and then come home on electric, that might be the hybrid version that we use until the electric vehicles can do all the work in our inventory. So with that, I'd like to pass it to my left, and thank you very much.
All right, I'm Jeff. I'm the city's facilities director, and I'll talk a little bit about public buildings and what we're doing on that front. Last spring, facilities hired Solarc Energy Group to perform a GHG and fossil fuel reduction analysis on city facilities in relation to the 2020 and 2030 CRO goals. The scope of the project included analyzing city-managed facilities that use natural gas. There are 43 sites in total. And Solarc came up with 13 different measures to help achieve those goals, so kind of different strategies that would get us there. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about what those strategies are and what they look like. Sorry. It's kind of a neat picture of Amazon Pool, the solar array. So the three scenarios include lowest first cost, so just the lowest initial cost to get there, the lowest number of projects, so easiest probably to implement, and then the lowest risk. And I'll talk a little bit about what that means in a moment. And so the first scenario, again, is the lowest first cost. So that's, construction, analysis, and so on is really that happens all. The bulk of the cost is right there. And so it includes recommissioning natural gas equipment. And so commissioning basically is evaluating the performance of the equipment, making sure it doesn't, it's operating at peak performance. If anything needs to be done, we can make those corrections. I think retro commissioning, I heard at one point, it's like a 5-year payoff or something like that. It's pretty quick. So just to go in and make sure everything's working properly, it pays for itself pretty fast. Another measure is to replace the pool boilers with air-to-water heat pumps, retrofit domestic hot water systems at the swimming pools, and so that's the showers, the sinks, and so on, not the actual pool water, and then retrofit the solar thermal hot water systems at the pools. We have those currently at Sheldon and Amazon Pool. And finally, replace basically the gas pack, the gas furnaces on the rooftops with electric heat pumps. The second scenario is the least number of projects, and so that's really just hitting on some of the big ones that can make the biggest dent, if you will, in the reduction goals. And so, again, we would look at recommissioning natural gas equipment. You'll see that's a theme through all of these scenarios. For this effort, we would replace the pool boilers with air-to-water heat pumps and also replace building boiler systems with heat pumps, and take a look at adding new solar thermal hot water systems at the pools. And primarily that would be Echo Pool would receive a new one, and we'd probably mod for the heating the pool. And finally, the lowest risk path. And so what we mean by lowest risk is sticking with basically technology and systems that we're currently maintaining now. So from an operation and maintenance standpoint, this is probably the easiest one to implement. And so we aren't bringing in different technologies or technologies used in different sites that we haven't seen before. So the big difference is we're not looking at replacing pool boilers or building boilers with heat pumps, and that's a pretty expensive endeavor, and also one that is just technology we haven't maintained before, and so this is a little lower risk. It includes replacing furnaces and rooftop units with heat pumps and VRF systems, variable refrigerant flow systems, retrofitting domestic hot water systems at the swimming pools, and new and retrofitted solar domestic hot water systems. Again, that's for the showers and sinks and so on. And then finally, new and retrofitted solar thermal hot water systems at the pools, so the roof solar systems. And so the graph here, you kind of have to look at it. It has a few things going on, but basically it shows all three scenarios. The first scenario is the lowest first cost, and you can see that in red for each of those graphs. So it's the lowest cost there. Orange actually goes all the way up to the top of the graph for each of those. So that's the operations and maintenance costs. And then there's a deduction with the lines in green that represents the energy savings for each of those scenarios. So you can see for scenario one, it's about $8.6 million total over the course of 22 years, which we figured was about the time it would take to implement, and then the life cycle of the equipment. The second option is $14.2 million, and the third option is $9.4 million, and again, that's net cost. The line in the middle represents the GHG savings for each of those scenarios, and it's pretty close. One of the key points there is that they all do meet the goal, but they don't within the CRO timeline. And so this strategy basically achieves both goals, but not by 2020, but by 2030. And so that's the big difference with that scenario, or those scenarios. And then finally, the kind of the key takeaways for us, the big one is fuel switching from natural gas to electricity. We know EWEB's electricity is almost carbon neutral, and so that's really the big strategy for facilities. The annual energy cost savings versus maintenance costs, actually the maintenance costs due to the type of systems that we would implement is actually, it outweighs the energy savings over the life of the equipment. Some of the non-energy benefits, anytime we go in and we improve systems, there's improved acoustics, comfort. It's probably one of the biggest complaints we get from staff is comfort in the buildings, by far in facilities. And so anything we can do to improve those things is a benefit. And finally, obviously there's a pretty big cost associated with any of the scenarios. And if you recall the CIP presentation last fall or last spring, we talked about where we were as far as the capital budget, and we're actually below the lower end of recommended levels for reinvesting and maintaining our facilities. So it's going to be pretty challenging to implement any of these strategies. What we'll do is take this information and help it guide our work when we're looking at systems that are coming due and need to be replaced, and that's where that's how we'll treat that going forward. And we're doing a lot of work around condition assessment, taking a look at the different facilities right now. And it back down to Chelsea. Thanks.
So thanks to Richard, Joe, and Jeff for presenting on those internal climate action plans. We have one more plan to present to you today, the Community Climate and Energy Action Plan proposal. So we'll shift gears to that now. The Community Climate and Energy Action Plan update proposal, which I will refer to as the CEAP 2.0 proposal, was initially developed by a project team that includes staff from the Sustainability Office, staff from the Human Rights and Neighborhood Involvement Office, consultants from Good Company and the University of Oregon's Community Service Center and Community Planning Workshop, and a liaison from the Sustainability Commission. The Mayor's CRO ad hoc work group provided input which significantly shaped the proposal. So I just want to pause here and just ask, are there any folks in the audience who participated on the Mayor's ad hoc work group, and I guess counselors as well? You can recognize yourselves.
Matt and Howard.
Got a few folks. Howard from our Sustainability Commission, and then Matt from EWEB back there. Is anyone? Great. So the Mayor's CRO ad hoc work group was created in 2016 by Mayor Piercy with Councilor Zelenka as the lead counselor. In spring 2017, the ad hoc work group started meeting with the focus on evaluating CRO communications, a process update to the CEAP, and potential for community behavior change programs. The slide above lists all the members of the work group. It includes wide community representation, including a representative from South Eugene High School, EWEB, Northwest Natural, the Chamber of Commerce, Eugene 350, and many others. The CEAP 2.0 proposal, which I will now present, was endorsed by the ad hoc work group in late September. I want to take this opportunity to again thank the ad hoc work group members. Their input was crucial to creating a project proposal that will meet the needs of our community. The CEAP 2.0 project proposal incorporates three key guiding principles: the triple bottom line, strategic doing, and adding value. Triple bottom line principles will be incorporated throughout the project. The plan focuses on identifying actions that will meet our CRO goals, mitigate climate change, and help our community adapt to the changing climate, all elements central to caring for the environment. Actions considered for inclusion in the plan will be evaluated using economic and benefit cost analysis. In addition, the project plan incorporates social equity through some distinct explicit actions that I will highlight in a moment. Strategic doing is a planning strategy that we will use to guide our process. The key takeaway of strategic doing for today's presentation is that we will only be including those actions in the final plan that a partner or the city has committed to doing. We will work with systems level actors to secure commitments to implement the actions identified through the CEAP 2.0 process. Finally, the proposal spells out a process that builds on existing resources in each task, adding value and building momentum to existing efforts. It starts by building from the CEAP 1.0 and existing research to identify high leverage actions. The proposal also includes aligning with other major existing plans and policies, such as Envision Eugene, the Capital Improvement Program, and the Transportation System Plan, as well as other community plans like EWEB's Integrated Energy Resource Plan. It builds on outreach strategies used by the Human Rights and Neighborhood Involvement Office, the Parks and Open Space Division, and the Planning Division. In summary, the project plan articulates how the process will build off a variety of efforts that already have momentum in the city, adding value without reinventing the wheel. Next, we'll walk through the tasks of the CEAP 2.0 proposal. Task 1 focuses on raising community awareness about the CEAP update process and getting the word out about opportunities to provide input. In addition, this task will provide opportunities for the project team to learn from the public about their concerns around climate change in their own lives via surveys and other outreach events. This task includes the development of a CRO Communications Plan working with the communications and marketing consultants. The consultants will identify appropriate messaging and communications channels to reach key audiences, develop project websites, and address communications needs as identified. We will seek to raise awareness about the project for the community as a whole, but will emphasize raising awareness with local technical experts, members of the business community, non-governmental organizations, neighborhood leaders, and representatives from the city's boards and commissions. In addition, the city will work with consultants to develop culturally appropriate engagement opportunities and materials to raise awareness among marginalized communities in Eugene. Task 2 is all about documenting progress and aligning efforts with other major plans and policies. In this task, we will review the original CEAP document and document progress to date. We will build a dashboard to show this progress on the CEAP 2.0. We will also review existing major plans and policies to identify, if they were fully implemented, how close we would be to achieving the CRO. This task involves a forecast of emissions reductions for adopted plans and an analysis of the gap between existing plans and meeting the CRO goals. This task also includes the development and implementation of a procedure to evaluate city programs and processes for opportunities to advance the CRO goals. This procedure will be applied to policies and programs like the Capital Improvement Program and the Transportation System Plan. Staff from the City Manager's Office will work with staff in each department to identify a prioritized list of programs and processes to evaluate. Task 3 focuses on engaging with large lever shareholders to determine actions that will be included in the plan. There are a few key concepts included in this task that I'll take a minute to go over before I dive in to the process. So first, a large lever shareholder, we're defining as organizations in Eugene that have significant oversight and impact on the community-wide fossil fuel use and greenhouse gas emissions, or have the ability to affect or alter systems that will enable the community to adapt and prepare for climate change. Second, we will use an approach known as strategic doing that I highlighted earlier. The key takeaway from strategic doing is that we will only be including those actions in the plan that a partner or the city has committed to doing. So we will work with large lever shareholders to secure commitments to implement the actions identified. So back to the process. These large lever shareholders will be asked to meet 3 times. In the first meeting, they'll identify the possible actions that they're willing to take. Between the first and second meetings, the project team will conduct technical and economic analysis, evaluating the impact of actions on greenhouse gas emissions and fossil fuel use reduction and the cost of each action. Co-benefits and potential challenges will also be identified. During the second meeting, shareholders will consider the analysis provided by the project team and evaluate the impacts of their identified actions and decide which actions to include in the draft CEAP that will go to the community for review. Between the second and third meetings, the community will review the plan. This is in task 4, which we'll talk about in a moment. And then the third meeting, the large lever shareholders will have the opportunity to consider and incorporate the community feedback where appropriate and feasible. There are several initiatives around social equity incorporated into this task. It has become best practice to incorporate social equity principles into climate action plans. While there are many good reasons to incorporate social equity principles, one of the most important reasons is that our low-income populations, communities of color, and other marginalized populations tend to be disproportionately affected by climate change. It's crucial that these populations have a seat at the table and a voice in the process at every step. The project team is incorporating social equity principles in two direct ways in this task. First, the technical teams that will advise in the process for each chapter will include equity advisors. Equity advisors will be individuals from either a marginalized community or individuals who work closely with the marginalized community. They will help inform the discussion on social equity impacts as shareholders identify their actions. Second, we will include co-benefits and unintended consequences in our analysis of actions with a particular eye towards social equity implications. I also wanted to take this opportunity to let you know that the Sustainability Office has recently been afforded a couple of opportunities to expand our capacity around sustainability and equity. First, Ethan Nelson recently began a Fulcrum Fellowship. It's a program offered through the Lincoln Institute's Land Policy Center for Community Investment. He is one of 12 fellows chosen from around the country for this opportunity. His project focuses on utilizing adaptive leadership and collaboration to increase equity impacts for the CEAP 2.0. In addition, the Sustainability Office was just awarded a grant from the Urban Sustainability Directors Network to host an Equity and Diversity Fellow for the summer of 2018. The grant focuses on recruiting and supporting people of color in the sustainability field. These opportunities highlight direct efforts to broaden the discussion, increase capacity, and bring more resources to our work around equity. Task 4, the community will have the opportunity to review and comment on the draft CEAP chapters. As in Task 1, the project team will seek feedback from the community as a whole, but will emphasize seeking feedback from local technical experts, members of the business community, non-governmental organizations, neighborhood leaders, and representatives from the city's boards and commissions. And again, the city will work to develop culturally appropriate opportunities for more marginalized communities to review the plan and provide feedback. Finally, the project team is committed to responding to feedback in a systematic and transparent way. Summary notes from any community meetings will be available on the project. Summary notes from the community meetings will be available, and the project team will respond to major themes identified from those meetings. In addition, the project team will respond to comments submitted in writing using techniques similar to any legal rule changing process. Task 5, the project team will complete the final draft in Task 5, incorporating feedback from the community outreach and any changes made by large lever shareholders, and then we'll present the plan to you all for formal action. And the last one, Task 6. Task 6 involves the development of a community-wide individual action behavior change program that focuses on household and neighborhood engagement. The first piece of the task involves reviewing and assessing current individual action behavior change programs that are already in operation in our community, like Love Food Not Waste and Smart Trips. Next, we'll identify gaps in the programming and evaluate the feasibility of addressing those gaps either within the city operations or through other community partners better suited for the task. And then we will develop a program if the project team identifies the city or a partner the city can support as the right place for a program to be housed. This program will be evaluated by the city executive directors to create a decision package that will be brought forth through the city's budget process. And the last slide. This slide shows the estimated cost of the CEAP 2.0 project. As we continue to refine the details of the project, we expect these estimates to vary up or down by up to 20%. The estimates given here reflect a significant amount of work to scope out what the project would entail by members of our project team, including Good Company and the Community Service Center at the University of Oregon. Based on estimates from consultants, we estimate the total cost of the mitigation and adaptation stage, so tasks 1 through 5 that I spoke of today, will be about $230,000. And then we anticipate needing to hire an additional staff person to incur additional costs to the city to help with project coordination and to help with project coordination. We anticipate the cost will be about $200,000 over the life of the project, approximately 2 years. And then the estimated cost for the individual action behavior change program stage, or task 6 that I spoke of today, is estimated to be about $50,000. This will be coming back to you as a request for $290,000 through supplemental budget 2 so that we can continue our work in January, and the remainder will be coming to you in a future budget process.
That's it. Questions?
Thank you very much. And I also just want to extend my thanks to the members of the Mayor's Ad Hoc Committee, because it was a lot of work and it went over many months, and they really, I think, the conversation was incredibly constructive. So thank all of you, those of you who are in the audience and those who are out there in the public. So I have Alan up for questions. Chris, any other in the queue? Okay, take it away, Alan.
Yeah, the examples that you guys gave were great examples of greenhouse gas reduction actions that actually create net benefits to the city and the community rather than net cost, meaning that we're better off financially having done the project than not doing it. And plus, we get all those non-economic co-benefits associated with it, including greenhouse gas reduction. So I think most of the actions we take will actually be in this category where they create net benefits for us, especially in the early years of developing this. I'd like to point out 2 recent relevant items that we've seen. One was the survey that we just saw in the parks, which said what are the major concerns. The third leading concern of the citizens of Eugene was climate change. 66% said it was extremely serious or very serious problem. It was right behind healthcare at 68%, and then number 1 was homelessness. So the third most biggest concern for the citizens of Eugene, so we're on target. The other one I wanted to point out was the Register Guard and other media, but we keep seeing almost every day another article about climate change, and this was in yesterday's paper, about a study done by the National Institute of Atmospheric Sciences in Boulder, and they're predicting and modeling dramatic increases in rainfall and flooding, as much as 80% by the end of this century, and 80% in the South, and we can expect somewhere around 40% more from bigger and more strong storms. So more and more issues around flooding and the cost. Since 2010, it's cost us $20 billion in these different floods and things that we're seeing from storms. So it's a very timely thing, and I think citizens of Eugene and the council actually realizes that, which is why we're moving forward with this important issue. I too wanted to thank the folks from the committee and the widespread participation on it, from the Chamber of Commerce to eWeb and Northwest Natural, Transportation, 350.org, Our Children's Trust, Sustainability Commission. We had a youth representative from South Eugene High School, Karina Williams, on it. Executive managers and then the council was on a meeting. Greg and Chris and the mayor came to all the meetings as well. And especially staff, Chelsea and Ethan and Mia Cariago were great, and our facilitator extraordinaire, Jason Dedrick, did an amazing job. The purpose of that group was to flush out more and move along the idea, the communications around our goals and reaching our goals for climate reduction goals, and then also the CEAP, and then also engaging the community in this effort, which is going to need a lot. And the community did this. I think the committee did this in spades. So my hat's off to them. So I'll need another round.
All right, Chris.
Thank you. It was really an honor to be on the committee, and when I was first asked to be on it, I asked, well, why would they want me? What could I contribute to this group of certified smart people who know a lot more about the subject than I do? And I realized shortly that part of what we were trying to accomplish was how to communicate this issue out to the community as a whole. And early on, I thought, well, do we just want to communicate this, or do we really want to change behavior? I mean, that's kind of the point here. So we very quickly got into the notion of not just informing people about it, but actually figuring out strategies to change behavior. And the two ways you do that is you either push people or you pull them. It's the carrot and the stick. And I think we really wanted to say, what could we utilize as pull strategies, as ways to encourage and incentivize people to do the heavy lifting that we want to do. And when we talk about, save the planet, I think that's a great message, but the message is only going to appeal to certain people. And when you say, okay, well, it will really help your community, and that's a message that also will appeal to certain people, but there's other people that it won't appeal to. But when you bring the message down to this will help you personally, I think that's a message that most people can understand, because we all want to do something that will help us. And if I can help myself and my community and my planet, that's a cumulative message that has great force. So we really want to look at those kinds of messages to send to people to say, there are things you can do for yourself and your family, and you can do them now, and they will benefit you and your family, in addition to helping your community, in addition to helping your planet. And that's why when I look at the triple bottom line, I don't tend to use the word planet. I tend to use the word place. Because your place can be my home, my place can be my city, my place can be my neighborhood. And if it's the planet, 6.9 billion other people will work on that problem. But if it's a place and it's my home, then it's me and my family, and I think that's a much more personal message. So that was, I think, part of what my contribution is we have a lot of things that we can do, and we need to get as many people on board to do it. And they have to appreciate that the payoff and the benefit is for them and their place right here in this community. And this was a real aha for me, is there are very legitimate and very tangible things that people can do at the local and personal level that will benefit them and will still achieve these goals. We're not necessarily looking at lots of discomfort and pain. If we wait too long, there may be some discomfort and pain, but part of the goal here is to begin the action now so that you don't create a lot of pain later on. And so it was a lot of things to do, and I really appreciated how receptive the committee was to this way of thinking, that it's better to pull people than it is to push them if you really want to achieve lasting change.
Claire?
Thank you. Thank you very much for this presentation, all of you, and thank you to the committee for the really valuable and important work. I had a few questions and then a couple of comments. One, are we applying our rules about no idling to contractors who are contracted with the city to do public works projects? I actually asked Kurt Corey that about 2.5 years ago.
I'll look into it and get back to you and see what is written into our contracts.
Thank you. I think that, that's something that we pay for, that's a cost to the city, that's part of city work, and I think it should be included in those kinds of initiatives. I really appreciate the smart savings, Chief, that your department is seeing, the example of the pump that doesn't have to be attached to a diesel engine in order to get some of the training needed, and the driving simulator. I think that's exactly the kind of smart thinking that really helps us get to what we need operationally, but then also helps to meet these goals that are very important, I think, to our community health. So, I was really glad to get the more detailed information in the presentation. I felt that the packet was a little thin in terms of detail, given the scope of work involved. I'm glad to see that we're going to be entertaining a request to add some FTE to this important work, and actually, City Manager, in anticipation of that supplemental budget request, I would like to know what the dedicated FTE has been on this work since the passage of our ordinance in 2004. If we could just get that historical look back, that would be appreciated. And I was also going to remind us all about the polling that we heard at last week's work session, where climate change was number 3 on the important lists that people identified in that poll as something that they were very concerned about and wanted to see some action on. So I think it's obvious from the public testimony. I think, if we added it all up in the last year, we've had hours and hours of public comment on this topic, and I think as a council we are, in spite of our good intentions, actually lagging behind on what the public would like to see. I think you could even see from the number of people here we have at a midday work session on the day before Thanksgiving that this is an important topic to our community. So I think the other thing I'd like us to be thinking about is how we're going to be presenting ourselves to the world in 2021 and how we can be in a position to truly be leaders on this issue, given the values that we see reflected in the community on this and the urgency of the situation to our community. And then my last question is a practical one. You talk about timelines, month one through 3. When do you anticipate the start for the timeline countdown?
We started a little bit ago. So we've been trying to get out of the gate on a lot of the large lever shareholder discussions. And so Christy, Assistant City Manager Christy Hammond and I and Chelsea has already started those. And so we're really trying to prep for hit the ground running within, if the supplemental budget is approved, then we would have resources to move forward in January.
Great. Emily.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I have really continued frustration both last year when there were so many meetings about how we were going to measure the decreases and now that it's at least another year for this to get done. And I understand that government moves slowly, but I don't think we have time to move slowly. And, you know, you've made this great plan. I guess there's no way to speed it up. But if it's number 3 for the people, I have frustrations. We've done a lot of things, like, you know, the electricity emissions are down, and that's wonderful, but it's because we're using more renewable sources, and we have more people coming, so the net effect isn't as much as we would like it to be. And there were lists of good things that we can be doing, but it feels like we have to wait for the plan to really get on with it. So I have some frustrations about that. And one thing I'd like to have more attention to is how much money do these things save? You know, some more money to do it in the supplemental budget is one thing, but I think a lot of the actual strategies would also save us money, and we get very frequent updates on the budget, and this seems equally as important. So I would like to see more frequent updates on what actual changes are happening, not necessarily the % of emissions reduced, but what actual events are going on, like the no idling, that's great, the LEDs inside, that's great, that the city's doing, but I'd also like to see more research and promotion of what we can do as individuals. I'd also like to know who are the large level shareholders.
We're in the process of developing that list, but it's, as Chelsea had said in the definition, we're really looking at organizations and actors across the community that have ability for systematic change. And so an example would be EWEB with the electric system, LTD with our transit system. So we're continuing to build that out. If you have input that you'd like to provide, we're totally open on that.
And I hope those entities are already working on their strategies to do this and not just waiting for a group effort. Could you give me a little more insight into market-based and location-based accounting, and also the sector-based versus consumption-based on the emission inventories? It seems like there's different ways of accounting for things, and I'm just a little bit confused. You know, that may be too much to talk about now, but it's something I'm very, very interested in. Is the social equity groups more impacted by climate change than the rest of us? That's something I don't know either. I might need a second round.
Just didn't hear that too.
Any others needing a first round? Okay, Alan is up, and then Emily again.
Yeah, just back to the mayor's ad hoc committee, and what a good job they did. I want to compliment them again. The example of the work that they did was the difference between the first draft of the CEAP 2.0 and the communications plan and what we had a final draft. They're significantly different. So a lot of good input from a broad breadth of people that made the work product a lot better. A really good example of how community groups like that and advisory groups can really add value to the stuff that we're doing. And I think that'll continue as we move through this process. The staff's done excellent work on putting together the CEAP 2.0. I think it's an excellent plan to update the CEAP and to engage our public and our partners. We do have a long list of that staff can share about who the stakeholders are that we went over briefly in the and worked on in the committee's work, the ad hoc committee's work that we'll be able to provide. It's also important to note that the motions that we took for the Transportation System Plan, TSP, and the CIPs, Capital Improvements Program, to have action plans that meet the CRO goals, those are going to dovetail with and feed into the CEAP. So those two things get used in the CEAP as part of the work that we're doing, and those take some time, and they're going to, over the next year, we're going to be building those plans up, and those are going to be key feeds into the actions that we can take at a community level, but also at a organizational level. So the goal is to get all of our major planning things in alignment towards meeting the CRO climate reduction goals. I think we're in a much better place than we were a year ago in terms of communication, community engagement, getting the CEAP off the ground, and pulling this off and getting us towards meeting our goals. It does take some resources that we saw, and that'll be coming back to us in the supplemental budget on December 11th, and it's a good start in moving us along and getting an FTE on board that's focused on this. There's always that joke about the work plan that's done by committee doesn't get done. If you have somebody that's in charge of making sure that all the people that are supposed to do the stuff that they're supposed to be doing gets done, then I think it stands a much better chance as a place to land within the organization. So I fully support all of that and the CEAP plan.
Great. Emily, you're back.
Just a reiteration, I guess, but I just don't think we're doing enough fast enough. And I appreciate the plan, but, we've reduced electricity, but we haven't reduced it enough to meet our goals. The emissions from fuel are going down, but the numbers aren't enough yet to meet our goals. So if we don't increase our strategies and increase our energy and time into these, I don't see how we're actually going to meet our goals. We have the road bond, which offers money for pedestrian and bike transportation, a critical strategy to reduce emissions, but I'm not the only one who doesn't think it's enough money. So thank you. This is great, but I want more. I want more action and less planning. Thank you.
Jennifer.
Yeah, so I want to thank you guys, and especially the fire department, for really stepping up and being willing to go through this process. That has to be hard to be the first one. Mm-hmm. So I was looking at you guys' timeline, and I actually thought it was pretty reasonable. I think one of the things that's important to me, at least, is that as we're going through this process and planning, that we're really bringing the community along with us, and not everyone in the community is at the same place right now. Some people, it's going to take them a little bit longer to get the information in the background that maybe they haven't been exposed to yet, and so not rushing it so that everybody can be at the table together and do this as a community is really important to me. And so I think the time that you guys have built in to really make those touch points, or whatever word you want to use, to go back and make sure people understand what we're doing, and just bragging about the accomplishments that we make as we go along, I think will be really important. I know, when my employer has done things that are environmentally responsible that maybe I haven't done yet in my home, I see how that really can be done. It wasn't outrageously expensive, and how can I take that back to my own home? So I think that's going to be good storytelling for us as well. But thanks for all the hard work.
Betty?
I didn't say anything about about inspections. Did you discuss that?
automobile inspections we did not discuss.
Emissions inspections, certification.
Oh, emission inspections certifications for fleet, our internal fleet, or for
The city.
The city?
For everybody.
Yeah, no. We can incorporate that on into some of the work that we'll take a look at.
Another thing I think could be done is safe bicycle parking. People won't ride bicycles if they are likely to lose them when they walk away from them. But I would like to see a list of that you could show people that we are doing this, because everybody says, what are you really doing? And things that people can see that you say we're doing them, and they can see, oh, that's right. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, Alan?
Yeah, Emily and Betty's point is a good one. We actually have been doing quite a bit since we've been working on this. And they just provided an example of some of the things that we're doing. It's not a comprehensive list, but maybe staff can provide us with a comprehensive list of all the actions we've taken since maybe a couple of years back, maybe as far back as you can go, 2010, and what has been done, what the net result has been in terms of greenhouse gas reductions and whether or not they've been cost effective, and if so, how much have they saved in terms of dollars.
Yeah, I would like to just point out really quickly that we do have a pretty comprehensive resource list that has been on the website for over about 2 years now, and that we are able to share with the community on an ongoing basis. And when the fire department, fleet, and facilities reports are finished, we'll also post those on the website. And they're very comprehensive. They're being done in a process working with Good Company for fire and for fleet, and with facilities that's been with Solarc Engineering Consulting. So it'll be very robust and have a lot of information. So we do have those available.
So provide us, the council, with that list.
We can definitely do that. I just wanted to make sure.
One issue with that list is it's just internal. It doesn't all the things that are happening in the community and in other organizations aren't being tracked that way. That's one of the things that we need to do within the CEAP is figure out how to do that better and make sure that all the things that EWEB's doing and LTD's doing, the U of O are doing, and the school districts are doing all gets tracked so that we can meet our community-wide goals that we have.
Emily, you want another round?
I really appreciate that it's on the website, and it went right over my head that it is. I'm, trying to keep up with so many things. I have not had time to read the city's entire website. And I bet a lot of other people haven't either.
Halfway.
So if we would like to engage the community more, both with what we have done and their ideas of what we should do, which I realize are in your plan, and that's great. But since there is information already up there, I would love to see some more outreach, some more publication of this, because I could have read it before this meeting if I was aware of it. And I bet other people would like to know that we have lists of what we've done and ideas for the future, and how they can get that. So I don't know, put an ad in the paper once in a while. Hey, we've got, climate stuff going on. Check out our webpage. Just one of the things I'm always pushing is how do we tell our constituents what we're doing? And you've got a way to do it. Let's let them know. Thank you.
Did you want to say one more thing?
Yeah, just in response to that, one of the things that they created as part of the mayor's ad hoc committee was communications plan, and it lists all the things that we are doing and are going to do. So maybe you can provide that as well. That's on the website, but
just I need to know.
Yeah, right. So the communications plan actually is really good, and then the stakeholder plan is already incorporated in the stuff that we've got, but. And then again, the inventory just came out, and that's pasted on the websites too. And the executive summary is only like 2 pages long, so that's a good thing to read.
That is part of the challenge. I think that ultimately that's part of the challenge. And one of the things that I took away from the ad hoc committee's conversation is there are the infrastructural decisions that the city makes that enable people to participate in reducing our greenhouse gas emissions seamlessly, because we've just created that infrastructure, and so they just partake of it, and then there are the pieces that we're asking the public to be very conscientious about themselves and how they implement those things. And so some of the examples that our own fleet and fire and safety, some of those examples then do become the models for how the rest of us might think, oh, well, it'd be great if we had the RD99 or what was it called? 99, R99, the R99, and then we, that becomes something that becomes more universally available. So I think it's an excellent step forward. Really excited to have your report, and I think that may be the end of our meeting, and I wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving. Thank you so much for your good work.